Well, I have 6:30 on my watch. I'm assuming Lisa does too, because usually we're in sync. So we'll call the Village of Cottage Grove Board of Trustees to order. It is Monday, April 17th. It is 6:31 on my watch now. We are holding this meeting via Zoom due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Everything is being recorded, including the chats. If folks feel like they want to get online, they just look at our agenda and click a link, and they can do so. Or they can use the audio feature as well, and there's a number and an ID there on the agenda as well. We'll start with roll call. Lisa?
Allen?
Present.
Lindbergh?
Present.
Murphy?
Present.
Radcliffe?
Here.
Valencia?
Present.
Vandervelde? Williams?
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right. The agenda was properly posted. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 4 is public appearances. Can't seem to talk tonight. This is public's opportunity to speak on any agenda item or on any topic in general. So I will pause a moment, and if anybody from the public would like to chime in, please state your name, your address, and we prefer that you limit your comments to about 3 minutes. All right. Since I don't hear anybody, we'll move on to the agenda then. Item 5 is discuss and consider the meeting minutes from our regular board meeting from August 3rd. Any comments, edits, or a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
First by Troy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sarah.
Second by Sarah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thank you. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Then a continuing discussion, item 6, unfinished business about the board's priorities. So Matt has kindly put in a memo in the packet related to the next chunk of those fiscal responsibility in there. So Matt, you want to say anything on this? I know you kind of outlined the goals of staff members as well as kind of where we're at with these things.
Sure. The next two are fiscal responsibility and housing. So I gathered, as with the past times, any staff goals that may fall in line with those given priorities, and then if the board wants to discuss doing anything in addition to that in the near term, long term, or some items to discuss potentially come budget time, we can do that now or during the budget process as well.
Any questions or comments from the board members?
Thanks, Sean. That was the other thing. Yeah. Any questions or comments on those existing goals or objectives?
This is Melissa. One thing I'd note, I think for housing, doesn't Aaron attend seminars or webinars or conferences related to development, which includes housing too. I mean,
Sure.
sometimes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess I do as well. So yeah, that could be added in there.
There's more than you realize once you start going through. I'm always impressed with the staff report and things that we're doing that line up with our priorities that we don't really think about. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or discussion? And as Matt kind of spoke, he's indicated, these are obviously going to fall perhaps in the budget cycle because there may be some sort of budgetary item associated with it. So it's good that we are covering all the top priorities through the last few meetings. So appreciate, again, Matt, for putting this together and comments from the board.
Yeah, and in addition to it, it's important to remember that any two board members can, with any of these priorities, if there's a topic that they want to discuss on an agenda, can get something on an agenda, write a memo, and have it discussed by the board as well. So, yeah.
All right. Any other comments? Otherwise, we'll move on. All right. New business, then. The first one is discuss, consider a sound amplification permit for BB Jacks. I don't know if there is information in the packet related to that, the form and everything. Looks like music on Thursday evenings, I think.
Yeah,
Only common. Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, I was just going to say that, yes, they dropped this off, and it sounded like they were going to have it on their patio every Thursday.
I was just going to say, I think I would feel more comfortable if the approval was for a time period instead of just every Thursday. So I don't know what the rest of you think, but it may be for 2020 or until, I don't know, end of October 2020, some sort of end date, so we're not going into perpetuity here approving this permit.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be good, maybe an annual basis. We could review it, or seasonal, like I said, open to what date we end it, end of October, or just make it an annual basis.
So do you want this to go to the end of 2020 and then they come back in 2021?
That seems reasonable to me. Mm-hmm.
And then if I'm not, on my permit, it looks like it's start time of 6 a.m. to end time of 9 p.m. Is that supposed to be 6 p.m. or is it supposed to be like literally the whole day?
Well, I would assume it's 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Unless they want to play music for the construction people for the hotel next door, or the drive-through for some of the other places that are open that early, or somebody filling up with petrol. I suspect they wouldn't want to pay musicians all day long, since they don't have any activity till lunchtime. So I'm assuming that's correct. That's a good catch. And if it's motion to approve, we just specify both the time as well as the duration, I think, and just so it's clear. Any other comments, questions? Otherwise, I'll make a motion then to approve the sound application for BB Jacks for the remainder of 2020. If they're willing to do it in December, God bless. And from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., not a.m., as indicated on there.
I'll second.
All right, and second by Troy. Any further discussion? No, hopefully I covered everybody's comments correctly. All right. All those in favor then?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next item then is discuss and consider the procedure for nominations to the committee appointments. Melissa, you put a memo together and this just attached the application form that we approved several meetings ago.
Right, thank you. So we did the application, but we haven't formally decided on how it would be used, whether right now it's just out there that people can complete if they would like to be on a committee. And my purpose for wanting the application was so that we have a uniform piece of information that collects the same information that Lisa requires anyway when they do become on any committee, and gives us a little bit of background information for all of us. It makes it, if we were to have people complete this application before they were appointed to a committee, it gives them just a little bit of something to complete so that we know more about them, and makes it more transparent.
Questions regarding the memo or slight change in process from board members?
I like the part also that if we have additional committees, that staff can just add that on the list, that we don't have to reapprove the form because we add, like your example, diversity, equity, inclusion, that we can just add that onto the list without having to reapprove the whole form. So I think that's a good point too.
I appreciate the transparency that the process would bring. I think holding anybody who wants to be part of a committee accountable to the same process is important for transparency, to prevent the potential optics of there being favoritism or cronyism or any of that. I appreciate just the open transparency. Everybody fills out this form. That's the process.
We agree with that, Sarah.
Do we also make trustees and village presidents fill out this form too? I mean, if we're going to be consistent across the board for anybody on a committee, maybe that's something else to.
Probably be a little bit more exempt because when you are elected on as like the positions that we have, it's a given that you're going to be serving on committees. Unless you mean we fill out the ones we want to be on or something and then go through the approval process like that. Otherwise, I have no problem doing it, but I don't know if there would be any reason for it because that's part of being elected. Because some committees require a certain amount of trustees on it. So
Correct.
Yeah.
Would it be helpful for you, John, as the president who has to kind of, go through and make nominations and suggestions? Would it be helpful for you if trustees kind of went through and indicated where they thought they had a good fit? I could see that being helpful.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, we kind of already do that because I send out a note and you guys respond to an email and everything. But this would just check it instead of me even sending out the email. And what I would anticipate doing for future presidents is they would just send the form out and say, hey, give me your input, and then go from there. That way we are consistent across the board. It was just my thought. And then it makes it easier than even having to formulate an email number. We have the interest, and then maybe in the case of a trustee, I think you almost have to put your priorities too, because there are certain committees that that you'd have too many trustees that are interested, and we've had that in the past. So that would be my only input suggestion.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
No, that portion of it wouldn't take effect until the election cycle, right?
Correct. I mean, we already have everybody on committees already, so yeah,
I
no.
figured that, but I thought I'd ask. So
No, we're not going to go through renominating everybody.
Mix it all up again.
No.
You got nothing better to do, right?
We've got a few committees to find folks for right now, so let's stick with that. But it would be helpful for anybody, either myself or anybody going forward, I think, to reach out to everyone and just, including themselves. I mean, there's some required, but then there's some optional too that the president gets involved in. So I think that would be just something to have on file for everybody.
Even if you're already on that committee?
No, we mean, as far as going forward, no, because yes and no. It's kind of double-edged sword. Because some of those committees, the term is the length of your serving on the board, and that's tends to be, some are 2 or 3 year term or whatever. So it varies from committee to committee, but certainly to show your interest, because there'll be changes, next year with the election and everything, and there'll be openings. So again, it'd be good for everybody, at least for the president, to know that so-and-so has interest in this, and when and if a spot comes open, then that's appropriate. So that didn't answer that question very well, did it, Troy?
No, that's okay. I'm just curious. If you're already on the committee, I'm just thinking to fill out a form then on a committee that you're already on, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to me. That's all.
No, I think this would be more, in the context, I could see the president just saying, what are your interests? Here's the form everybody fills out. Just let me know what's your priorities, and then go from there.
All right. And would we utilize this form to curtail citizens from being on a committee? So if they say, I really don't want to fill a form out, we're going to say no to them, or is that going to be a case-by-case basis?
Well, I would say if they don't want to fill out a form, then they really don't want to be on a committee, because the committee requires a little bit of work, and this form isn't that involved to complete.
And they do have to provide the top of that information anyway, to Lisa, because of the stipend and such.
And I think if there were accommodations that were needed, if somebody, I can't come up with a reason right now, but if somebody were to need an accommodation and couldn't fill out a form, to your point, Troy, I think if we want to hear that argument on a case-by-case basis and make a decision, I'm okay with that. Different people need different accommodations, so.
It just, in my mind, it seems like it's been a struggle to get citizens to be on some committees for whatever reason, and we're just adding another step in that process they need to take, which in some cases it discourages them, and maybe we don't want them on a committee. I guess I'm just raising the point, though, that it's been feels like it's been hard in the past to get citizens on certain committees, and maybe my impression is wrong in that.
Other comments? Go ahead.
I just think to Melissa's point, we don't want to sell the village short and putting somebody on a committee who isn't even willing to put in 5 minutes to fill out a form. That the committee is our commitment to the village, to putting in some work, time, and effort. And I think it's reasonable to request this of somebody who wants to be on a committee. I don't feel like this is overly laborious, this form that we'd ask them to fill out.
I've seen some similar type of online forms in other communities too, where you do some check boxes and fill in things. So to be on committees, just to match the right people to the right committees, and just kind of know more about background information or why they're interested in serving their community, and we take that seriously and think it's important that people that are interested are involved. So it's not something out of the blue that I think other communities do this same type of thing too.
For sure, I know Dane County does. In order to be a citizen representative of any Dane County board, you have to go through a much longer, actually, application process. So.
So this is a discuss and consider the procedure. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that all nominees to committee appointments fill out the committee nomination form to be considered for a committee unless accommodations are requested. And trustees shall also fill out the form when elected or appointed. And staff can update the committee list as necessary.
Second all that.
All right, we got a motion second from Heidi and Jeff. Any further discussion?
I had the easy part.
Yes, you did, Jeff. Having heard none, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right, we'll move on then to reports from village boards, commissions, and committees. Starting off with Public Works Committee. I think JJ is enjoying himself on holiday, so I'll take a stab at this. And I know Kevin's on the line too to throw in. So we met on August 4th. Continued to talk about Clark Street, and there was an item there related to recommending what should be proposed, at least for the budget, to be considered, and that was the full amount for all of it in breaking in full amount for all of it, but breaking out into pieces that are needed. So there's a portion for just a bike path to take advantage of the TAP grant. There's a portion for Grove Street, and then the rest of Clark Street with some additional parking. So the committee basically said that, that should be in front of the finance and the board, finance committee and the board, just for them to consider the whole thing. And then they can decide what chunks most appropriate, or all of it. It's a pretty expensive project, though. They're upwards of somewhere in $3 million range if it's all said and done. Is where we're at currently. The thought was to still take advantage of the TAP grant for 2021. Then that's update included the bike path, obviously, as part of that, going through Bakken and then flowing all the way to connect to the existing bike path. And then we obviously need the county to do their portion up to Vilas at some point. Then we talked about the update for Bus Road and BB. This is for the traffic lights, the additional lanes, supporting the school and the development out on BB there. And again, that's going to be part of the consideration for the board as well in the budget cycle. Then we just went through the engineer's report. Kevin provided an update. We reviewed the 1855 patio project was one of the highlights out of his report. And that'll obviously be percolating through plan and everything else and eventually to the board. JJ updated a number of things, including crack filling, which was going to be done the following week and was on the bike paths. Several of them were taken care of. Fairly light meeting. That was pretty much the highlights of that. Future agenda items is just talk about the overall operating budget and some other budget items, and reconvene in September. Any questions, comments? Kevin, I don't know if you have anything else to say about the meeting?
I think in general you covered it. I guess the only thing I'd add is we did go through the future capital improvement plans that JJ put together, looking out 5 years. We just briefly discussed them, kind of just getting the committee's input on some of that. But a lot of those are beyond this next year and everything, but just looking forward.
Yep. Right. Thank you, Kevin.
I did have one question. It looked like all the improvements in the reports were done for this year, but I was wondering, is the Sandpiper crosswalk going to go in this year? Was that considered an improvement, or are we still, wasn't there a crosswalk that was going to go across Cottage Grove Road?
Yes, in fact, surprisingly, I didn't note it here, but I did ask JJ about that. Still the plan. We're going to take advantage of the folks that have been doing the concrete work on the sidewalks. We just haven't had a chance to get them to do that portion of it. And then there'll be some sort of associated signage with that crosswalk too. It'll be much more in depth of a crosswalk, certainly as Sandpiper goes through at some point someday down the line, but it'll give another, as we talked about, again, another opportunity for people to get across the double lane highway, with a landing in the middle, and that's where the concrete work needs to be done.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a long stretch there, so.
Yeah. But yes, it's still planning to be done. Thank you, Heidi.
Thanks.
All right. If there are no other comments or questions, we'll move on to the Library Planning Committee. Melissa.
Thanks, John. So we reviewed the survey questions again. As far as who to reach out to with the survey, the guide that came out is very timely, and it has the list of all the groups in the in Cottage Grove and in the community. So that gives us the information we need on who to reach out to when the survey is complete. We're discussing how to connect with businesses for input, and rather than a survey, I think we'll be doing maybe contacting business owners directly with sets of questions, specific questions instead. And we're working on the video for the intro to the survey. So we meet again on this Wednesday, the 19th.
All right. Any questions for Melissa? All right. Thank you, Melissa. Then next item is Community Development Authority. And there is a discuss and consider recommendation here. But Jeff, I'll let you give a background for this one.
All right, we met on August 10th at 5:30 p.m. There were two main items on our agenda. One was we looked at the RFP for marketing firms. So Aaron had put together, Matt, I believe, helped to put together like the RFPs for looking for marketing firms to kind of help us brand and help us promote our community more. So we looked at that, we sent that out, and then I believe they have until, is it September 10th? Am I right about that? To respond?
I think I changed it to the Wednesday before the next meeting, which might be like the 9th or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
Have a bit of time to look at them before the meeting.
All right, so we should have them at the next CDA meeting. Hopefully firms will, be interested and give us their proposal. The whole goal is to somehow figure out what the numbers would look like. So when we come to talking about the budget and stuff, figure out if there's room in there for moving forward with kind of a rebrand and I guess I don't even want to call it a rebrand, a update brand, because we're growing as a community and it's important to express that any way we can, and then also marketing our community, especially to future developers, commercial developers, residential developers, whoever was looking at our community as a potential for their operations. are any questions or anything on that before I move on to the next one? Okay, there'll be more in September for the board meeting on what they look like, and then we did have a discuss and consider ourselves for that meeting, which is we're looking at the commercial Commerce Park signs. So there are two signs in general that we looked at. One, if you're driving in the Commerce Park, like if you're coming down Gaston Road and you go straight ahead across, or you take a right there at the Culvers, right in the center of that median, there's a Commerce Park sign, which played a good role at one time because there were no other signs and Commerce Park was new. Now we have one. If you look to the left and right, there's really nice, really beautiful signs on both sides. So that one in the middle not only is kind of an eyesore because it's kind of getting grimy and stuff, but it's kind of redundant to have it. The other one is if you're on the interstate, it's kind of now tucked away behind Summit because you can't really see it that much anymore, and that one's really run down. So we were talking at the CDA meeting, do we want to improve these signs or do we just want to take them down? So we took a vote and we all agreed that just taking them down it makes more sense. I believe it was Matt that brought it up at that meeting that at one point Gray Wolf is talking about doing more of a professional sign. Am I correct about that, Matt? Am I speaking off guard here?
No, that sounds right. They were looking to do a larger monument sign for their retail building, and then they had mentioned to Aaron and I that if the village was interested in partnering with that, if we wanted to do any advertising on that or do something with the park, that would be an option. The other thing, if for most of the park is we're nearing filling it up, which is great. So we don't necessarily need further advertisement, but if we want to it's a great park. So for just branding purposes, if we wanted to look into it, we could do a larger sign out by the interstate. The discussion was more so just with the size and scope and scale of the Summit building, we would have to do something pretty substantial, which is going to be pretty expensive in order to make any kind of get anyone's attention really out there. So
right.
There may be more discussions with that, but it didn't sound like there was a lot of interest.
Okay.
For that.
But so, there's potential for all that. So the whole idea was these two signs that are worn down and kind of redundant. Do we vote on just getting rid of those signs, in which we did? So now we're bringing it to the board level with this discuss and consider. Do we want to just vote and have those removed? One of the things I do want to point out, the TID it'll come out of the funds from the TID, and then on top of that, JJ and his crew potentially could do a good amount of the work themselves, which is beneficial. So it's not really going to cost us anything. So if there's any discussion on that or any questions before we vote, that'd be welcome.
I'll make a motion to remove the two signs that are tired, as I call tired, wore down, beat up, at the Commerce Park.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Troy, a second by Melissa. Any further discussion? John, go ahead.
If I can chime in, I know a little bit about this, and it is very minimal. The village will have to do some electrical, just capping things off there. But for the most part, staff can handle removal of everything out there. So it should be pretty seamless.
Okay. Heidi, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just want to put in my little plug for some kind of seasonal banner or like kind of more of a tourist looking thing so people can, when they drive into the hotel or go to the restaurant off the interstate, they establish some kind of, good feeling about being in Cottage Grove. So for future signage, that's my little plug for considering that.
Yeah, I think there's a beautification budget within the Public Works, I believe. It's very minimal. But certainly Public Works can put a plug for that too. Well, I know we've done it recently is with the American flags, and then some stuff in Old Town, working with the Houstons. But certainly there's an opportunity. Maybe CDA takes the lead on that as far as whether or not there's an interest from the commercial properties down there to have some sort of branding or whatever. When you come up with the branding that you want, perhaps that's where you leverage it. I don't know, but I would agree with you, Heidi, that it's nice to have a seasonal plug or even if it's an event type thing. It's larger events. Sometimes there's opportunity to kind of plug those too with those either little flags or something else that's not too expensive.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. And then you could even maybe keep some of those seasonal banners for, especially something we repeat every. I know I do believe they put Christmas in the Grove banners up. Am I correct about that? I've seen those. I don't know if those are reusable, if they just do a new one every year, but yeah, that's a good idea, Heidi.
Yeah, and maybe the TID funds, some of it in that area, and then the village picks up other parts of it, make it cohesive.
All right.
Just a reminder, we have till May of 2021 for expenditures in the TIP district to approve expenditures. So after that time, it's kind of everything else has to be established before that time.
Okay. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Heidi. We have a discuss and consider. We have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. All right. Moving on then, the Ad Hoc Sustainability Committee. Heidi?
All right, so we met last week, and it was kind of a lot of update. We're still working on inventory of energy use in the village, so our electricity use at all of the buildings, vehicles, equipment, vehicle replacement schedules, so we can kind of plan out what our energy use is now, and then looking forward, what is a replacement schedule looking like for some of our equipment to be more sustainable, efficient, and a couple of the committee members took the lead on working on a resolution that would be presented to the board that would lay out some specific goals and targets that the committee would recommend we consider trying to meet. We're continuing Facebook educational posts about different topics relating to sustainability. And per Sarah's suggestion last time, started working on a rain barrel program, hoping to roll out something that we can do kind of a large bulk pre-order, which would get a discount on that, and then have like a delivery pickup. So it would basically just be the village as kind of an in-between and pickup location, but because we do a bulk order, we'd get kind of lower pricing on that. So we're going to work on something for the spring on that. Committee chair also, Nick, wants to publish an annual report so we can list out our accomplishments, things we've achieved to become more sustainable in the previous year. So he's going to start working on that because we did have an LED light replacement. So we've done some things in this calendar year that we'll be able to highlight next year. So our next meeting is September 15th, and we're hoping to have a resolution to consider at that time.
All right. Thanks, Heidi. Any questions for Heidi?
I have just a suggestion maybe with the rain barrel program, because I'm very interested in that, but I was thinking maybe with delivery or before delivery could do some sort of class or something on them, so that when they're delivered, people know what to do with them.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And then they can get it home and install it right away. It doesn't just sit in the garage. So yeah, some kind of YouTube, or if it's a free online tutorial, or something along those lines. That's a good idea.
Well, I know JJ had been working on doing one this year, so maybe he has some ideas for next year then. Because this would be for next year, right?
Right, yeah, in the spring.
Well, I'm interested, so.
All right. Watch our Facebook page for more info.
All right. Then moving on to Plan Commission. So we have a couple discuss and considers for this. I'll take a stab at running through the meeting, and then Melissa can jump in too as well, or Kevin or Aaron. So there was a discussion to amend the comprehensive plan for 3 parcels. There's a 4th parcel that we'll have to cover later because we did have it covered in the memo, but not on the discuss and consider. So it was felt that we just needed to cover just the 3 parcels. And that was to change the zoning for those 3 that have been sitting vacant for a number of years to plan mixed use from retail essentially. And so there was a lot of discussion around that, including a presentation on the traffic flows of what retail would look like versus the planned mixed use. The takeaway there, this planned mixed use would have a lower traffic flow for that. So that addressed some of the folks' questions on that on the commission. Ultimately, it was approved to amend our comprehensive plan.
Sandy, I'm on my meeting.
Pardon? I think Andrew was having a private conversation at home that was not on mute. So it was approved for those 3 parcels, and then we'll follow back up on the 4th parcel with the commission. The second big item that was discussed at the meeting was a overview of a site plan at 1855 Saloon on 218 South Main Street. Everybody kind of knows where it is. They're looking to expand their patio area, which will be really, I think, from the commission's perspective, look very nice as you're coming down that bike path and you see this expanded area. And the commission, again, approved that, and that is up for consideration as well. And then we have just a concept plan for just commission feedback from Kevin Metcalf on West Cottage Grove Road. Essentially a mix of condos at various price points on that parcel that Kevin Metcalf has with his partner. And overall, the commission's essentially said, please continue sketching it out and letting us know. They have very limited plans at this point as far as what it's going to look like, but there was no commission members that really said that wasn't appropriate. That would also require a change in the comprehensive plan because that is not zoned for kind of mixed use. So that would be something, if it moves forward, we have to go through the commission and board as well. And then we, like a lot of the other committees that will be going forward, is we reviewed the village board priorities because there is a direct impact to the commission, and went through that, answered some questions of members. Pretty straightforward, again, in the pursuit of being transparent and make sure that everybody's aware of what this board is kind of prioritized. So I think that was good, and I think that was the first committee to do so, or commission to do so. So there'll be a few other ones that are on the list as well to share that information to those members. Any comments, Melissa or Kevin, things I may have missed?
Sounded good.
Okay. So then with this, then there are a couple considerations for the board. One is for the amendment to the comprehensive plan, as I discussed, for those 3 parcels next to the stop and go across from UW Health Clinic. And the other one is to discuss and consider, a site plan amendment for the patio area for 1855. All of which are in were attached in the packet as far as details and everything.
If I can ask a question on the MSA project review for 1855, it says Atwell Suites Hotel and then proposed 1855 patio. Which is it? Is it for the hotel or is that for 1855 downtown?
I'll have to look at it, but I'm sure that I just copied that. I never noticed it. It should be for 1855.
Okay. I mean, that's what I'm assuming by the map and stuff, but they're definitely two different sites, and they're both listed on here. So.
No, I'm sorry about that.
Oh, thank you.
So we'll take the first one as the amendment to the comprehensive plan. Any discussion from the board, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 09-2020 regarding proposed amendment of the Village of Cottage Grove comprehensive plan regarding the 3 parcels listed on our agenda. So I don't have to read them.
Second.
Okay, Troy seconded then. You guys are close. All right, now we have a motion and second then by Melissa and Troy. Is there any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion carries. All right, second, discuss and consider from the Plan Commission was to for a site amendment for the 1855 saloon on Main Street there for the patio area, which is in the packet again. Any discussion on that?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the site plan amendment for 1855 saloon at 218 South Main Street.
All right. Thank you, Troy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Conditions?
Yes. Well, my second is with conditions. Troy, was your first with the conditions?
With conditions, yes.
Okay. With conditions. No, that's all right. Aaron keeps us honest with that. Spends a lot of time doing that. So does Kevin. So we want to make sure we include those in, and they're appropriate too. And it's the same that was approved by the commission. So we have a motion second. Any further discussion on that particular item? All right. Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries then. Then we'll move right on to reports from village officers, starting with Stafford. Is Larry on? Larry is on.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Well, all that for me to say, I've got nothing to report.
Other than your technology is working today, so we got that going for us.
I couldn't log into the meeting other than via phone until about halfway through. It's a bad day for technology for me.
No. Well, we're sorry to hear that. Here, I thought it was working. Go ahead, Melissa.
I'm sorry, I had a question. So with Flynn Hall coming up, they have a meeting on Wednesday. Did we ever get the committee changed? Does it now include trustees at all? Or also, I know that it has the update on lease and cooperative agreement regarding Flynn Hall. Have we finished ours from last year yet?
No, that's not done yet. We've just re-engaged on this as we work through the conflicts, as you know. And Rick is just re-engaging on that now. So we're really just kicking off what we're going to accomplish with Flynn Hall at this point.
Okay.
Melissa, I was planning on attending that. I did for sure. And like any open meeting, anybody's welcome to join in. But I was certainly planning on it. I did attend last year's meeting too as well. So
great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Then moving on to the COVID-19 update. Matt, you want to start us off?
Sure. Not a lot to report from my vantage point. Everyone, staff staying healthy and continue to follow all the guidelines, and that's all I have.
And maybe we'll let Lisa. Lisa, how did the elections go? I think everything I heard went well, but.
Yes, it went well. We had 279 in-person voters. Believe it or not, we actually were at 30% with all of the absentees that we had prior to. So that's a very good turnout for an August primary. And it went well. We did the same setup as we did in April, and it worked great. We didn't have any issues whatsoever. I think our voters are happy with it and like the process, even though it takes a little bit more time. Moving forward for November, we're have already ordered plexiglass, and actually JJ picked it up on Friday. I just put it away today, anticipating that we will be in the building, although Matt and I had a brief discussion of possibly doing both so that we could have outside and inside. Have to think about that a little bit because the logistics of using our doors and getting people in and out of the building without crossing paths too much may be a challenge. But we're definitely working on that. I'm happy to report that I have been receiving citizens that want to serve as poll workers, which is awesome. We've received all of our supplies from the state for August and November elections, so we're well equipped for hand sanitizer, face masks, sanitization for equipment. So I think we're in good shape, and we'll just continue to plug along for November. I can tell you, I didn't look at the exact number today, but I can tell you that our absentee voting is going to be probably record-setting because we continue to get requests each and every day. So that's a good thing because that's going to be our first plug, is to get people to vote by absentee, because that is the safest way. So all in all, it was a good day.
All right. Thanks, Lisa.
Can I ask a question, John?
Sure.
Thank you. Lisa, did you guys have problems getting through all the absentee ballots on election day? Or how did that process go?
Actually, no. So we had, don't quote me, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think it was right around 1,200 that were returned. So with the setup that we have the 2DS200, so which is the tabulator for the ballots. And being that we have people voting basically from outside and our poll workers are inside, they could process the absentees. So we set up one DS200 to tabulate all of the absentee ballots, which is a time saver at the end of the night as well. So we were done with our absentee ballots well before the polls closed. If you recall, in April, we had we had over 2,000 absentee ballots, and we were done with that before the polls closed as well. I'm going to anticipate that we'll probably have closer to 3,000 for November, and that could become a challenge depending on how many in-person voters we have to get those done. But we should be able to handle it. It's nice to have the extra DS200. That helps tremendously.
Great, thank you.
Then moving on to Chief Labor.
Hey, John. No, nothing to report COVID related at the police department. Everybody's healthy. We're still wearing our masks when we're talking to people, dealing with people, and nothing has gone out of the norm as far as calls we're responding to and how people are behaving. So all's good.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Lieutenant Wagner.
The only update I have is just our figures. At this point right now, we're at $14,770.35.
All right.
That's all I got.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Sean.
Nothing COVID related to report. Everybody's healthy here, so we're happy wearing our masks. We did have our first park and view yesterday. Had a really pretty good turnout. We had 30 some the second showing and a couple the first showing, including Melissa, who was there. Heidi helped and seemed very well received. So we were happy with that. We're very thankful for our sponsors of Laufenberg Lawn Care, MSA. Kevin was in on that, Hydrate, and Culvers of Cottage Grove. So it was a beautiful day. Beautiful, not humid at all. We had a nice breeze. It was a great day at the park.
And I hate to do this here, Sean. Technically, there's a violation behind you. Your door's open. You're in the office.
I'm the only one in the office right now.
That's not true. Chief's there, and so is Matt Wagner.
But they're both 150 feet away from me.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
We're separated by 3 doors. We're okay.
I'm just going by the order.
I'll write them up, Matt.
All right.
All right, on that note, we will move on then to communications and miscellaneous business. The consider approval of vouchers. Any questions with the vouchers or comments?
I'll make a motion that we approve the vouchers for 8/17/20.
Is there a second?
I'll second. But I did have a question and I was on mute. The garbage and recycling collection, is that then the annual? Like, is this a new cycle, or is this on here every so often? Because we did have an email about the recycling frequency, and so I was just wondering if we should think about that for next time, what our contract has. I don't know what the cycle is on that. And I saw it on here, and it reminded me.
Yeah, Heidi, the contract goes through the end of 2023.
Okay.
And Deb can certainly comment on the frequency of billing. It's probably quarterly, I assume.
Nope, it's monthly.
Monthly,
It's
okay.
monthly. Okay.
Same amount every month, and then it goes up at the end of the year. It's a fiscal calendar year, and it goes up based on how many additional stops, and then there's an increase in the per stop charge every year as well.
Okay. Thanks for the info.
Yep.
All right, we have a motion second then to approve the vouchers as presented. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody oppose? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Correspondence. So I don't know if Heidi, you alluded to the one. Do you want to?
Yeah, there were a couple points in that one. So the garbage and recycling. So it looks like we have a few years before we consider that. And then I thought it was an interesting point about the housing task force having kind of someone involved that might have another perspective or may not always be heard at the table when we're talking about housing, but it's an important perspective about affordability and different housing situations, or kind of a social worker or someone that might have that perspective. So I'm not sure if we need to formally change that, or if, have someone from that area in housing, or if we just kind of think about that as we approve appointees to the housing task force. I'm not sure if anybody else has, or if we can even kind of discuss that, but I thought it was an interesting point.
I think that the housing task force is going to bring in different speakers as well. So that is, if we don't happen to get a specific social worker, or I'm trying to remember the full email, but that's one perspective that can be a presenter then too.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I did respond to that person, let her know that when the collection agreement is up. So there's not a lot we can do regarding the frequency of recycles versus trash, but certainly something to think about in the next go around with a lot of feedback. I think that the both the office receives as well as JJ regarding, just the recycles piling up. And the other points are very, very good about, bringing in speakers to the housing task force with diverse backgrounds and make sure we kind of hit all of those that were highlighted and try to find, obviously, the folks that are with diverse backgrounds hitting more points, hopefully, with some of that. Any other correspondence? Anybody want to note?
The last one on her point was the old sustainability committee documents. And Lisa, thank you for sending me all those documents. I'm going to kind of work through and see if there's anything to bring to sustainability. I was going to mention that before too, but that was our other point on her email.
Yep. Okay. Upcoming community events.
Thursday night is the Parks Committee meeting, and that coincides with the West Lawn Parks Master Planning meeting for the future park in the West Lawn area. So that's Thursday night at 6:30 on Zoom.
Okay. Others events that folks are aware of? Last week, Wednesday, the 12th, I think it was Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. The Comfort Suites did break ground officially. Aaron, myself, and Matt were in attendance to see that. It was a very small group. We were all obviously trying to stay socially distanced, and we were wearing our masks. So that was nice to see. In fact, they had already broke ground before that, so they had to stop the bulldozers and everything else just to have folks speak on that. So great to see that we're moving forward on the hotel. Just want to let everybody know that did occur and things are moving along. Future agenda items. Matt, anything that you can think of? We're going to start trickling in some budget stuff pretty soon, but I don't think by next meeting.
Correct. The finance committee is meeting next week to review the update for the financial management plan, and then that was going to come to the second board meeting in September is what we had that slotted in for. But Aaron and I are planning to do the annual development presentation at the next meeting, and then we have some consultant annual reviews for consultants. We'll have a couple at that meeting, the first meeting.
All right. Yeah, you and I talked about that. And if there's no other future agenda items other than the usual suspects, then we'll move on to item 11.
Can I ask, with the next meeting being, the first Tuesday, I mean, does it look like there's a whole lot on the agenda with Labor Day? And we talked about possibly having a meeting then, planning another meeting, depending on what the workload is. As some folks would probably like to plan for that week if there's not going to be a meeting or if there is going to be a meeting.
I think the plan was to have the meeting just to get some of these presentations taken care of, because otherwise we're going to run into multiple presentations at the second meeting, as well as start the budget discussions, which we certainly want to spend our time at. So that's why the thought was to keep that meeting for now. Matt, anything to add, or feel free, any board members?
I think between there's 2 consultant reviews and Aaron's and my presentation, plus any other items that come up. So it'll probably be at least a meeting like it is tonight, hour and a half. Otherwise, we're probably adding a lot to the second meeting in September, but that's up to you guys.
No, that's fine. I just was trying to get a read on what there is that we had, because it didn't sound like there's a lot of agenda items. So,
not as
of yet. Motion to adjourn.
A decent amount.
Second.
You beat me.
We have a motion by Troy, second by Melissa.
I just wanted to segue into it, guys.
Yeah, there you go. Slip it in there. All right.
Why didn't you start with that at the beginning of the meeting, Troy?
Next time, Jeff.
right, that's non-debatable. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good night, everybody.